Sheriff Woody at your service.
The toy box game discs. Morning, gentlemen.
Hello, take it.
Toy box game discs from 1.0 and 2.0. Well, 2.0, sorry. Will they be playable in 3.0?
So, what do you mean by toy box game discs? Just give me a little bit of.
Assaults on Asgard, Escape
Yeah.
the Kiln, are those coming forward to 3.0?
I do not believe they are.
Okay. That was my question. Next.
Maybe later. Would be great.
Cesar?
It's a really big game this year.
Huge.
It's very, very ambitious. What can you tell about the size of the game compared to the other two Infinities?
So, I'm going to kind of jump in on the last question. This is actually, the game is so big it's starting to not fit on the disc. It's literally what's happening right now. And so, as we're finishing this up, we are making some choices about how do we think people want to play, some of the content. And so some of these things aren't like, oh, is it easy or not? It's literally, does it fit or not? So there's some logistical things to having a huge game. Secondarily, okay, now just about the amount of content and the type, the differentiation of everything. That's one of the key messages that we're trying to get across is we had to bring on a lot of development talent to try to make sure that we were focusing on all of the different pieces of the game as much as they need to be. So that's why you've got so many different developers up there talking about this right now. When we started talking about, kind of the family and the community, there's kind of this big community that's being built up to make sure that we can supply all this content in a high enough quality. And that really, like with the sumo thing, I think is the perfect example. We went through and, had to have 30 or 40 people concentrating on just that one racing game, this go around to make sure that it really felt like an out-of-the-box experience, and so it's not just a play sets we wanted to do that on, but it's also the toy box expansion games and those kind of things. Just the sheer number of characters that we've got is pretty impressive, I think, for most games. So I don't know if there's kind of like something you'd like me to hit.
It's huge. I mean, to your point, it's huge. And then to John's point, the responsibility that we have of carrying so many different things forward is why this scope is grown and grown and grown. I mean, this thing is just like an avalanche, no pun intended, going down the hill. And it's interesting even from a developer perspective because we look at projects like some of the biggest MMOs out there, like World of Warcraft, that also have to do the same type of thing, where they have to support everything that they made in 2004 and everything that they're doing now and continue to do in 2015. And so we're talking to a lot of different development partners about how one goes about managing all of this. And to John's point about even on the size of disc, when you start thinking about, we've said that we're going to have over 100 playable characters, and you start thinking about all the different audio files for every single one of those characters, plus the fact that we localize in 15 different languages and distribute all over the world. And then you start looking at, it's not just Iron Man, but it's also Iron Man speaking Arabic, and it's also Iron Man speaking English, and it's Iron Man speaking Spanish and German. So you have all of these different versions, which is all on the disc as well. So it's big. So that's just kind of like the dev side of it. I think like the personal side of it is that the company, Disney creates a ton of content. And we've always envisioned Infinity to be a platform that supports the content that the company's making. And even to this day, I get tweets and John gets messages where it's like, hey, you're not supporting, why didn't you do more characters from Big Hero 6? Why didn't you do Oliver and Dodger? Why don't you do more legacy Disney characters? And it's like, it's so difficult to even get done what we're doing right now. And then at the same time, it's sad because we can't do it all, but we're trying, and that's why we brought on these other developers this year. So, yeah.
We were talking last year about Tron, and when I saw the trailer, I said, wow,
Yeah.
it's a big surprise for me.
Yeah, it's awesome. And Cora is such a cool character. Yeah.
So,
I'd like to ask a follow-up to this question, and is you brought on board some very serious talent like Vignocchi and Sumo Digital. And my question is, now you have many different companies working under your control. So how do you keep the vision straightforward? How do you keep it current with what you think is Disney Infinity?
So we have a lot of communication with all the external studios. We, just from a management standpoint, we have 2 people that we assign to each studio that are talking to them literally daily, going back and forth. But the bigger thing that I would say that matters most on that is communication down within the teams. So whenever we bring on a studio, we'll have like something like 10 guys from each studio will end up going back and forth to literally train with each other on how they work. So that, and then we just kind of talk through a lot of stuff. And so, I mean, there's, kind of, whenever we come to England, there's a lot of, kind of nights at the pub and those kind of things to make sure the communication is flowing well.
It's always flowing.
The communication.
Our joke is we feel like we get the most work done at the bar, than we do in an office or in a boardroom talking to each
I
other.
think a lot of times it's honesty, right? And
Yeah.
so, like, to make sure that people feel comfortable to be creative with each other, and oftentimes so that happens at the pub, I mean, strangely enough. And so that, I really think that it's that daily consistent communication, like if we didn't have like Skype, there's no way that we'd be able to pull this off being as far apart as we are.
I think one fun thing too. I'm gonna poke you so that you talk about this because I am so OCD about everything being the same way, being in a similar format, and hey, the beginning of every playset should start this way, and then it should go into this section of gameplay, and then mission should be this way. And I'm always like crazy like that. And then John is always like, no, let everyone do it the way that they want to, so that every one of these playsets truly feels different. And I think that's something that's a lot of fun, and people are going to see a lot more of this year. So you can see how Ninja Theory went and approached putting together the Twilight of the Republic playset, and how that feels from an overall just gameplay feel, than how much different that feels from Inside Out. Not only from a genre perspective and a presentation perspective, but just from an actual, here's how the menus are flowing, the screens are flowing. The front end's all, common, obviously, that we make. But the thing was that we wanted all of those to feel different, even if it drives me crazy sometimes. Everything to be consistent. Do you want to expand on that maybe a little bit more?
I don't know which part you're poking me on.
I was poking you on I was trying to poke you on you saying how you like it that they're all different.
Well, I look at it as more of, we've got so many different types of franchises that we're trying to incorporate. You have to do what's right for the franchise. I think on Infinity 1 and 2, we did try to go overly system-y. And so try to use those systems over and over again. It felt repetitive, to me. So in making those rules, you're also creating a box that means somebody can't be creative in a way that might serve the game. So I'm kind of on the flip side of that, to where it's like, we've got to open up those rules a little bit and make it so that they can feel different, because it should feel different. Otherwise, why would I ever go buy any version of this? Because I'm buying the same thing too many times.
Big, do you have a question?
As a huge Star Wars fan, I think I'm asking myself, will there be iconic figures like Boba Fett? So you have Anakin, so you have Yoda, Darth Maul, and what about Boba Fett? He's a huge character, he's a fan base.
So we can't comment on any characters that we might be adding, but rest assured, what we've announced today is the start, and there's more characters to come.
Okay, and the Force Awakens also?
We did announce that there's a Force Awakens playset, and we will have characters from the Force Awakens. In fact, we are the only Episode 7, the Force Awakens video game that's going to be out in conjunction with film, which is pretty cool.
Okay.
It's a pretty big honor too.
Cool.
When you were talking to Lucas about getting the different characters from the different films, like 1 through 7, all to be able to play in each other's play sets, how excited were you to be able to achieve that? Because it's really big, messing with canon, and you think, okay, right, is it okay for us to do it? Did Lucas just say yes straight away, or were they excited at the opportunity to do that?
That's such a bizarre thing that happened.
So they didn't say yes right away. In fact, we went back and forth on this kind of a couple times. I think we both ended up changing positions on whether or not it should happen. during the course of this. As we talked it all through, trying to figure out how to do that correctly is one of the biggest issues for us. And so I think part of this comes down into understanding what we've ended up having to do with the stories that are in these anyway. They're kind of different because when you think of episodes 4 through 6, there's a very clear timeline of when each character meets each other, when on which planet. And now we're a game where you can put down any character you want at any point in time and it needs to make sense. So right out of the gate, we had to go through and make sure that everybody understood what that meant from a, you know what, we're going to be inspired by the events that happened in episodes 4 through 6, but we're really not a retelling of those things because maybe all of the characters can be there. Or, hey, at a certain point in time, I'm going to be able to put down the enemy and be able to play as, you know, Darth Maul or whatever. I think that all then started to get into, well, if we're going to change those stories, does it make sense that outside of this timeline of episodes 4 through 6 and the timeline of episode 1 through 3, what happens if I bring Anakin over here? Should he appear as old Ben? Or does he, if I bring Anakin over, does he appear as Darth Vader? You know, or if I'm bringing over Obi-Wan Kenobi, what does he look like? And so as we started talking all this stuff through, we're like, you know what, I think we're overthinking this. Let's just make it easy for the players because we know that everybody wants this. So let's go ahead and try to figure out a way to make it happen for everybody because it's a huge request from fans.
Right.
And so this whole idea of we've got this play your way kind of mantra that we always try to go to, which is anytime that we can facilitate what the player might want to do, as long as it's not breaking something, let's go ahead and allow them to do that. And so those conversations kind of took over. So we do kind of gate when you can bring those guys in by needing to, you know, kind of find the player icon, you know, that's in there. But with that said, as soon as you do, then you know, then that kind of keeps all the story beats okay, and then those guys can go there.
So you have a look on your face that's like a little puzzled, so you might not know what we're talking about.
Yes, I do know.
You do?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
okay.
concentrate.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I was thinking, we didn't talk about this in the presentation, but it's so important that so all the Star Wars characters work in all of the playsets now. You have to pick up this crossover coin, but yeah, that was something that initially we had done crossover coins. We wanted to have crossover characters. Then we got into the big conversation about canon and affecting story and all that kind of stuff. And then it was, then all of a sudden one day we got a phone call. It's like, yeah, it's fine, put them all in.
So, but I mean, but there was feedback of the way that we did it on, you know, version 2.0 that we didn't do enough. And the reason we did, well, on 2.0 we were like, hey, there has to be missions for those characters. There needs to be a reason to bring them in.
Right.
And really people were like, no, I just want to play with the other character. And so we were like, oh, okay, if we don't have to do it for everybody, then go ahead and just allow everybody, but we didn't do missions in the same way.
And I think another thing that's important about this, because we're getting this question now, why not every single character then? And the thing is that I think that when you look at what we do with Infinity from a character mechanics perspective, you're not talking about like 7 or 8 archetypes of moves and abilities that are spread amongst 100 characters. With Infinity, we try really, really hard to make sure the characters all look, feel, and behave differently. That was a big focus of last year with the introduction of the Marvel characters, and it's another big focus again this year. And so when you start saying, you know, goodness, it'd be so much fun to put all these different characters in, the key thing is that now, by the way, okay, Darth Vader is going to be able to play inside of Twilight of the Republic. At Ninja Theory will look at that and say, you know, geez, in the beginning we were just planning on having these characters playable with these force powers and these abilities. Now that Darth Vader is going to also be playable, or Chewbacca is also going to be playable, who comes with the laser crossbow, now we have to support different types of characters inside of this playset that have different types of weapons, moves, animations. We might actually have to tone down some of the puzzles that we're doing. I mean, it's like this incredibly deep, complicated thing that at first blush it always seems like, oh, you should put all the characters in there. You should have Lightning McQueen drive around in Twilight of the Republic. But it's like, first of all, it really breaks fiction. But second of all, it's incredibly difficult because of how different all the mechanics of all the characters are.
Okay. So we're going to have to wrap up there, but thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.